Mile 1, gratitude. God, I just want to thank you for providing me the heart to beat, the legs to run. Mile 2, Lexi. Help her to continue to love you and find you and to feel your grace each and every day. Mile 3, God, as I run today, there are so many things going on in our universe and in our world.
Hi, I'm DJ Hjelmstad, and I started praying while running roughly about 17 months ago because we lost our son to suicide. Every race that I run and every mile that I run daily, there's always people that I'm praying for, whether it be someone who is suffering from the loss or grief. Could be an addiction, it could be a marriage, it could be whatever it is that they're struggling with. Those miles I run praying for each of those.
Mile 4, God, just be with Christy, be with her as she's a teacher in a public school. Mile 5, continue to help our world and our government keep you as a focus. Help them to remember who you are and how you created this world.
Trey was a ambitious young little guy. He was born in Chippewa Falls, Wisconsin. And he was our second child. Dave and I had another daughter. Her name is Lexi. Trey was very interested in building trucks, working on trucks. His dad wanted, in the worst way, to buy him this really nice new truck, and Trey said, absolutely not, Dad. I'm going to buy these old trucks and fix them up and sell them. And he did that. I believe we counted that he had 26 trucks that he actually built, brought up, and sold, and we just kind of chuckle about that now because that's who Trey was. Trey struggled with relationships with girls. He struggled with relationship with his dad. His dad was pretty hard on him just because Dave came from a military background and you're very organized, and I'm very much the same way. It's like we do things in order. Trey, at a young age, 12, 13 years old, trying to fit in with everybody, his feelings of inadequacy, not feeling like he fit in, of what he should be doing or where he should go, had him in a real, I wouldn't say depressed mood, but just, where am I going to go? What am I supposed to do? And him and I talked a lot about that. It spiraled into, at age 14, was where we saw the bigger turn, and Trey started hanging with some people that we didn't think he should be hanging with. He thought he was doing the right thing. He got into a relationship with a girl. They broke up, and from that breakup and not feeling like he fit in, it was his first attempt at suicide. You know, a lot of people ask how I felt during that time, and I think as a mom, I was probably feeling a lot of failure. Like, what can I do? And I immediately turned to God and said, God, I need your help. And we ended up actually sending Trey to Duluth, Minnesota, to a facility to get some help. After Duluth, things just kind of seemed to spark a little bit better. He seemed to kind of go with some young men that were just really good mentors for him. Between a young gentleman who was mentoring him and Dave and I, we said, Trey, you can do better. You're great at construction. Why don't you start your own construction business? And at this time, he was 20. He had several homes that he built within the Chippewa Falls community. He actually had a renting construction in Winona, Minnesota that was a huge complex, probably one of his larger projects. He was successful at that. He did find a girlfriend finally. He called me one day, he says, Mom, I'm going to marry her. And I said, really? I said, have you been praying about it? He goes, no, Mom, I know this is one. I said, okay. He dated this young lady for about a year and a half. She had 2 children from a previous marriage. Didn't matter to Trey. He fell in love with this young lady, 2 children, and this is where it kind of started to spiral again. And he called me one day and he said, Mom, he said, I don't know what the matter is with me. I'm like, what are you talking about, little man? He goes, Mom, I'm not ugly. I think I'm okay looking. He said, I'm kind-hearted. I'll do anything I can. I love people to love them. I have a giving heart, Mom. I just don't know why. And at that time, she had broken up with him. And I said, little man, God has a plan. God has someone out there that someday you can love like no other. And that was probably 3 weeks prior to him committing suicide on June 8th. June 8th, I got a call at 8:10 at night. I remember the time. And little man called me. And he was crying. And he said, Mama, I love you. And I'm sorry. And he said that 2 times. And he said, and I'm like, little man, what's the matter? Little man, what's the matter? I'm trying to talk to him. And he said, don't let Jake find me. And Jake is a gentleman who worked for him, would come to his house in the morning, and they'd go off to the job site the next day. And he said, Mama, I'm sorry, and I love you. And at that time, the gun went off, and it was silent. I knew at that time that he had shot himself. I could hear the phone drop, and I ran downstairs to my husband. I said, Trey shot himself. And he's like, what? And I said, Trey shot himself. And I remember going into my work office, and I'm spinning in a circle saying the Lord's Prayer, because at that time I didn't know what else to do, because it was like a total shock to me. So from there, I had called his stepmom and let her know, and she said, I'm on the way. And I said, Rita, you're gonna find him dead. And she got to his house, and Trey was up in his bedroom like he was totally sleeping. I never really asked God why. Basically more so just to give me the strength to get through whatever he's putting in front of me. Because I know with my faith has brought me through many, many things in my life. And I knew the only thing I knew what to do was pray. And so we continued to pray through the night. And the next day then we obviously went back to Chippewa Falls and got the funeral process going and getting through the grief that was present. Grief is a strange thing. I know many people say that there's steps of grief and you can bounce around in the steps. One of the steps that they, through my counseling, they said you're going to get angry. And I've never been angry at Trey. I've never been angry at God, because God tells us, and I talked about this at Trey's funeral, that where there's darkness, there's light. My statement now, and even it's been 17 months, I say, well, I cry a little less and I sleep a little more. My heart hurts every single day for my son. But I know that he didn't do it to hurt me. He didn't do it to hurt his dad or his sister or anybody. He just didn't feel that he fit in. And I don't feel that as a failure as a parent, because I know that I love my son the best that I could possibly love him. I know I taught him who Jesus was. But for the grieving parents who've lost their siblings or lost their sons or whoever they've lost and have that grief, I can tell you that it will get better, but it only gets better through faith. I just want to speak out to those young people who have the thought of suicide. Know that you are loved. Know that you are a child of God. And know that you have a purpose on this earth, whether you feel it or not. Another thing that I've done that's kind of my favorite thing to do, I call the prayer mirror. And I have this mirror hanging in my office, and I have little sticky notes that if someone needs prayer, I put them up on the prayer mirror. There's some people on that mirror that are hurting, and there's some people who are grieving parents. There's some people in that mirror who have cancer. There are some people in that mirror who just need prayer. And if I know that I can pray for them, the other thing I do as well is at the end of the week, I pick one or two of them and I check in on them and say, hey, how you doing? And sometimes they respond, sometimes they don't, but I do let them know, with the media and everything, there's ways to reach out to people and say, hey, I'm just thinking about you. I'm praying for you. A lot of positive responses. So the prayer mirror is going to keep on going. The other thing that I do for grief is I always have ran, but I take a different look at running now. Through my running marathons and such, every mile there's one person, and I typically take it from my prayer mirror to pray about. And so usually I try to do I call it my prayer miles, and I try to think of the people that I'm going to pray for the night before the race. There was one race, I think it was actually the Des Moines race. I was racing, I was getting towards the last mile, and she's kind of struggling, and so I'm like, let's run together here a little bit. And so I connected with her, and I shared my story about Trey. And she had just lost a son as well, and so we connected a little bit, and she was like dragging along, and I'm like, come on, let's finish to the finish line. And my last mile was always Trey, so I'm like, okay, Trey, you're talking to us right now, let's get going. And I want to share the story. I think it's what Trey wants me to do. Although Trey always said, Mom, when are you gonna stop running? And I'm like, When that finish line crosses and I'm in heaven, that's when I'll stop running.
Trey's mile. Trey, you've helped me through this race. You helped me get to the last mile to finish that finish line. I know you're there, little man. I know that you help me with every stride. And just know that I miss you. And that every race, Mama's running for you.